Hey, Chris Liepe here. There's a lot that goes into making your voice sound good on recordings beyond just singing really well. And I wanted to give you a practical set of starting points so that you can begin to make your recorded vocals sound amazing. Now, you can have good recording techniques and even a good ear, but if you're not able to dial in the sounds that you want, that you hear in your head with your voice, none of this is going to really work. If you'd like help working with your voice and developing techniques and sounds and textures out of your voice that you love, click the link below and join my free voice course. Now, according to me and some others, there are 3 fundamental pillars or areas that make a great recorded sound. Those areas are EQ, dynamics, and ambience. And with this Dayseeker snippet, I'm going to show you how to start and dial in your sound in each of these areas. Here is my voice raw off the mic, which in this case is a Liepe LCT 1040, and I'm running through a Manly Core preamp with some light compression, limiting, and EQ to get the sound. And you'll notice, while it sounds pretty good, it doesn't stick to the track. And initially, when listening back to this with no other effects on it, a lot of the things I'm doing with my voice, they just don't sound that good. They need to be placed from a mixing standpoint. Don't you leave me empty when it's only in my eyes. How do you feel the same without me? How do you feel the same when I don't seem somehow found me? But you still told me. All right, you hear a little bit of, like stuff going on with the mic, some low end things, there's some extra sibilance, my grit is awkward in places. When I don't seem somehow found me, but you still told me. I don't know. So let's take a look at how I've set up the first pillar, EQ. I'm using all stock Logic plugins, by the way. I've started by rolling off around 90 hertz. That gets rid of some of these things here. That extra breath into the mic is tamed by getting rid of that low information that really isn't in any other part of my voice anyway. And you can see gradually rolling this off creates a side effect of bumping my low end just a little bit, which is kind of cool. It gives a little bit of warmth, but I want to make sure and minimize the mud. And though these are slightly different in everybody's voice, you can use these frequencies and this curve as a starting point for you and then tweak using your ears. But this 250 hertz is a great way to retain warmth without introducing or still having mud. So if you decrease around 250 hertz in a male voice, and really a lot of voices, what this does is it gets these frequencies out of the way in the voice to make room for other instruments that do a better job of reproducing this in a mix, particularly useful with guitar-heavy, deep guitar-heavy stuff. Then I take a high shelf. So this shelf, what that does is it creates a high boost over the entire high range, starting with the frequency I designate. So I've started with around 4,000 hertz, and you can see when I do this, it brings everything past the frequency up in a nice even flow. And you can control this a lot of times in your EQ with the width of the boost. See, that's a more gradual boost or a more sudden boost. This is adding nice presence to my sound, that sparkly sound. I'll take the EQ in and out. So don't you leave me empty when it's only in my eyes. How do you feel the same without me? How do you feel the same when I don't seem Now, you can hear that sparkle. It got rid of some of those strange mic interactions where the extra breath and stuff like that. Those are minimized because I've rolled these things off. Now, I've boosted the presence, which is creating a little bit of a problem with my S's. Yeah, my mic technique isn't the greatest. I could be a little bit less emphatic on my sibilants. So I've corrected that with this basic de-esser plugin. Here it is with it in. Don't you leave me empty when it's only in my eyes. How do you feel the same without me? How do you feel the same when I don't see? It softens the S's without getting rid of them and still allows, when I'm not saying S or F, it still allows that sparkle when I'm phonating, when I'm creating long held out vowel sounds. So you get the brilliance without the harshness. And this takes a bit of ear to dial this in, but these starting points are really pretty good. A male voice around 6,000 hertz, female voice, you could go up a little bit, 7,000 or 8,000 hertz as a starting point. And I like to use the wide range, so it takes down the wide amount of frequencies instead of just the S's. For that period, it's reducing the S. I consider this to be part of EQ, even though it is really more of a dynamics thing. Let's now talk about pillar 2, which is dynamics. Using compression, limiting, and distortion is going to tame the dynamic range of your vocal performance. So when you're doing things like going from singing quietly in head voice to screaming, it sticks to your mix. You don't have to do near as much volume automation, programming the faders to turn up and down, which can be really tedious, and although some of that's good, you don't want to have to do a lot of it if you can help it. In this stock Logic compressor, I've stuck with the digital version. There's lots of cool sounds that you can get out of this thing, but this is a simple, wonderful, responsive starting point for me. And I have set things up so that I get between 8 and 10 dB of gain reduction. Don't you leave me empty. Compression in. When it's only in my eyes. How do you feel the same without me? How do you feel the same when I don't see? Somehow found me, but you still don't me. How do you feel? So, what you can see here is I've adjusted these knobs, threshold, ratio, makeup, to create that level of gain reduction. That's a starting point. Usually it works pretty well. I've done an in-depth video on how compressors work, and I've left that video as a link in the description as well. So if you want to go deeper there, be sure to check that out. But you don't necessarily need to know what these knobs do to get that starting point, to get that initial dB range of gain reduction. Then I have made sure that I'm just kissing the limiter, and I've added distortion. Now, if I take the distortion off, you can hear there's a stickiness that goes away. Eyes, how do you feel the same without me? How do you feel the same when I don't see? It further perpetuates the presence and brings the vocal forward and in the front, which I think is really, really cool sounding. And if your compressor has it, don't initially worry about knee, attack, release. Let those be what they are. Put the auto feature on and just see if you can create a balance here that sounds good to your ears and gets you in that range to start with. Pillar 3, ambience. It's very important that you treat ambience correctly so that you don't muddy up your voice when you're trying to add reverb and delay. Let me show you how to route it. You can see here that I have EQ and compression on the track as an audio effect or as an insert. You can see here that I have created new auxiliary tracks, and I have put the delay on those and reverb on those tracks, and I'm using a bus to send over to these other tracks. I do not put the delay and reverb as an insert on the track. This gives me way more control over their levels and how my voice hits each plugin individually, which you want because you'll get more clarity and be able to dial things in exactly as you want to for your vocal performance. More on that in a minute. Once you're routed that way, make sure each one of your ambient plugins is set to 100% output mix, 100% wet, 0 dry, as you can see here on the reverb. Same with the delay. We don't want any of the dry sound to come through the ambience tracks. We want them completely separate. That's part of the demudding and clean, crisp sound that you can generate from these plugins when routed that way. In my delay plugin, I am only letting a certain frequency range come through on the repeats. You can see it's very narrow. I don't want the S's, I don't want the sibilants, and I don't want the lower mid warmth coming through in the delay. I want it to be almost like a band limited AM radio sort of sound with a little bit more presence. This keeps the repeats out of my vocal articulations, but adds a nice ambience with the delay and reverb on. Don't you leave me empty when it's only in my eyes. How do you feel the same without me? How do you feel the same when I don't seem somehow found me? But you still doubt me. How do you... I have the delay tempo synced to my session, which is 92 beats per minute. And I have one side set at a quarter note value, another side set at an eighth note value, so I get that nice stereo width, that sort of ping pong effect. And with my reverb as a starting point, I've chosen a preset to start with that lets my voice still feel like it's up in the front of the mix. It doesn't surround my voice, rather supports my voice. And oftentimes, depending on the vocal performance, you'll have to go through a variety of different sounds to find which one sounds the most neutral and complementary to your particular vocal style. And one more note about ambient effects, particularly delay. In order for the delay repeats to not get in the way of your vocal articulations, lots of words, and in order to bring things out, make it soar a little bit here and there, you'll often want to turn up the amount of signal you're sending to the delay. This is different than simply turning up the delay fader. We're actually taking the level of the bus that we're sending over there and turning that up. So we're not turning the delay up, we're changing the amount of dry signal we're sending to the delay. What this allows for is that in places where I'm saying a lot of words or where I don't want that things going on, I can automate the level down. And when I really want to, I'm screaming or holding out a note, I can bring that level up. When I don't seem somehow found me, but he still told me. How do you feel the same without me? Oh. So you can hear that this automation covered up some of that awkward sounding grit. It brought the delay down when I was saying a lot of words, where when there's something really held out, you fail. Yeah. How do you fail without me? The voice soars, and you can really hear when I turned up that delay, it covered up some of the awkward grit, and it actually made it, because it blurred it a little bit, made it seem more gritty and present without my post-production signal chain. But you still told me, how do you feel the same without me? Oh, how do you with my post-production signal chain. But you still told me, how do you feel the same without me? Oh, how do you feel? more specifics and deep dives into how to use compression and EQ, check out this playlist. And again, be sure to join my free course if you'd like more help working directly with your voice. We'll see you for more.